Joe, you have so many spiteful, manipulative characters in your books.
True.
Is it true that they're all based on you?
Well, there's one important rule of writing, Jackson, which I've always taken to heart, and that is write what you know. So I like to base the people on my own attitude to life, cynical outlook, always asking the first important question, what's in it for me?
Welcome to Between Two Perns. My name is Jackson Dickert, and I'm here with venomously ambitious sociopath and author of children's fiction, Joe Abercrombie.
It's a pleasure for you to have me here.
There's a lot of talk about the looming global economic recession.
Right.
Are you worried about that at all?
I mean, not too worried. I think you've just got to mind your own garden. Make sure you're giving the people what they want.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll be able to weather those storms and come out on top. And in the end, if a lot of people have to lose so that I can win, that's just the price of success.
I don't think that the economic recession is the one that you should necessarily be worried about.
Okay.
I've interviewed a lot of bald guys on this show.
Right.
None that were in the process.
I'm not sure how that question would apply to me.
I hate to be the one to break it to you. But you
Have
might.
you been standing behind me at some point?
I have. Do you mind pointing at your head and just showing me whereabouts you're going to call it? Just so that way your friends and family can
Call
know
it and shave it all away.
all the way.
When the lockdown happened,
Yeah.
I thought to myself, now's the time to just shave it all off.
Sure.
And get a kind of a pre-look at what my head is going to look like once I'm forced to do that.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Jackson, the results were a little ugly.
Yeah.
We all imagine we have a nice shaped head.
Right.
We like to think that, but I've got to tell you that not everyone does.
I get it.
I'm one of those who doesn't have the best head. I was hoping once I was shaved I'd have a kind of Patrick Stewart look. That was not the look. It's small, it's knobbly,
Yeah.
it's kind of odd.
Kind, sober, and fully dressed. Good news, everyone. We found the name of Santiago's sex tape.
My wife said, I'm afraid that's not going to happen.
Right.
You're going to have to hold on to the few wretched stalks you have left and be buried with a few rogue long hairs sprouting from your head,
Wow.
And so I'm afraid I've got to cling on to what I've got for the time being.
A few years ago,
Yeah.
you gave yourself the moniker Lord Grimdarp.
I did indeed, yes. Like all the best titles, it was self-awarded.
Since you're such an avid gamer, don't you think the title Lord Grimdork would be more appropriate?
It probably would be, but since I was able to award it myself,
Right. You just got to kind of pick and choose.
I went with dark.
Yeah.
Exactly. But possibly others might use the phrase grimdark.
We do.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I encourage you.
But since it's been a few years and you're a little bit more popular now, do you think it might be time to upgrade your Twitter handle to Grimdark Jesus?
I don't know. I don't know about bringing Jesus into it. I find that often, can make things more difficult rather than easier.
Right.
You would have thought that Jesus, mentions of Jesus, would encourage the teachings of Jesus. Charity, forbearance, pleasant behaviour, all those things.
No qualities that you have.
Well, no, but I like to see them in others directed towards me. And on the whole, when you bring Jesus in, often the results are otherwise. People can get quite upset.
That wasn't the best suggestion. That was my mistake.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, it's not the last you'll make, I'm sure.
In a remark that has aged particularly poorly, Brent Weeks has gone on the record calling you the Kanye West of fantasy.
Nice.
So perhaps Grimdark Jesus would be more appropriate.
I think it might very well be.
Yeah.
I'm entirely happy with the Kanye West of fantasy. I mean, he's a successful guy.
He is.
So I'm happy with that. Yeah. I mean, the one question I'll ask is, has Brent Weeks ever made any well-advised comments? I'm not sure that he has.
It did confuse me a little why Brent Weeks referred to you as such.
Right.
I haven't noticed any anti-Semitism in your work. Would you say that the anti-Semitism is more low-key, or would you say that this is more a reflection of Brent Weeks and his interpretation?
I mean, I couldn't talk too much for Brent Weeks.
Right.
As far as the anti-Semitism goes, I have occasionally been accused of a little bit of that, actually.
Yeah.
Because, I have an evil banker
Oh.
in my books. And that was seen as possibly playing into some classic anti-Semitic tropes.
Bankers are great. They're all so good.
I like to think in the normal world, they're the good guy, as in my books.
Right.
He's the good guy. I said you've misinterpreted this.
I think it's just people who don't have a banker willing to give them as much money as maybe they're willing to give people like you and I.
It could be that. A simple jealousy, you think?
I think so.
It's the root of so many of the world's problems.
In an interview in 2008 with AidenMoher.com,
Right.
you gave a list of some talented authors who you would try to anonymously undermine. You mentioned that George R. R. Martin would have his next Game of Thrones book out soon and that you doubted there's much you could do to stop that juggernaut.
Yeah.
That was the last Game of Thrones book that's been released. Is Winds of Winter delayed because you figured out a way to anonymously undermine George R. R. Martin?
I mean, I'm making no comment.
Right.
You know, if you're working from the shadows, that's where you should remain.
Yeah.
But you've stated the facts, you know. I said I couldn't stop the last book. The next book hasn't come, so...
The evidence is there.
You be the judge. You add 2 and 2 if you're capable of that.
Martin doesn't seem like the only author whose career you've managed to inhibit, however. In 2014, you were supposed to do a panel at Celsius 232 in Spain.
Yeah.
You couldn't make it to the panel, so Patrick Rothfuss covered for you, and he took your place at your panel talking about your work for you. Do you think Rothfuss would have more time to finish books if he spent less time covering your ass?
I guess the question you've got to ask is which is more important? Covering my ass or having another Patrick Rothfuss book out there in the world? And as far as I'm concerned,
Sure.
you know, appearing on my panel is the highlight of that guy's career thus far.
Right.
You know, he was lucky to have that opportunity, and he grabbed it with both hands. And if that means he can't ever get another book out there, I think generally the public would feel it's a price worth paying.
He ended at a high point in that case.
He did.
He
He
did.
did. I would agree.
Do you think that it's time, 10 years later, that you return the favor and cover for Rothfuss by finishing his book for him?
You know, the finishing the books for people is a difficult one. There's often talk about that. I mean, Brandon Sanderson has hurt us all.
I have been lying to you.
In so many ways,
I wonder if brutally murdering an interviewer...
but particularly in the sense he's created this unrealistic expectation that an outsider will dive in and finish the work for us. Not everyone has his work rate. I certainly don't. And so I'm not sure I'd ever be in a position of having the time or the energy or the moral fibre, honestly, to finish off someone else's book.
Or caring, right?
Well, it feels like a lot of work on someone else's behalf.
Right.
Obviously, if I was offered the right amount of money, my opinion would change entirely, as it does on everything.
You didn't just manage to predict the glaciering careers of your contemporaries, though. You seem to be excellent at predicting the future. Back in 2009, you did an interview with Wired.com. This is back when they were still a reputable and respected news site.
You actually do some research. This is incredible.
In your interview, you said that films were becoming more derivative, whether it's Transformers 2 or Shrek 5. How did you predict Shrek 5 16 years before it came out?
I can't remember what happened 16 years ago, so it's very hard to know. I suppose, though, you know, numbers do naturally follow one after another. You may not be familiar with the way this typically works.
I get confused after.
Plugged in as I am into the film industry, I know that usually a Shrek 2 would follow a Shrek, and therefore I suppose by continuing the Arabic number sequence, I could have reached the concept of a Shrek 5.
Wow.
It's like Merlin in Excalibur, that kind of level of foresight and understanding. It's not something you see every day.
No.
I can see the awe in your face.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It is, I know.
You have had some experience working in television.
I have, it's true.
You wrote the script for Mason's Rats and Love, Death, and Robots Season 3.
Yes.
The episode follows a man with an infestation of intelligent rats in his barn who uses an advanced rat extermination system to get rid of them.
Yes.
Did you agree to write this episode because you condone animal abuse?
I absolutely condone animal abuse if it is of value and potential profit to me, of course, as I do human abuse.
You've had an interesting career trajectory.
You mean the downturn? You're talking about the downturn, aren't you?
We're going to get to the down.
Okay.
We're not there
Sure
yet.
are.
We're gonna start with the up, and then we're gonna go down.
Okay, that's the way to go.
You attended the Lancaster Royal Grammar School.
I did indeed. You familiar with the fine institution?
No.
Shame.
But you didn't go to Lancaster University.
I did not.
You went to the University of Manchester instead. Why is that?
Because Manchester was quite the party city at the time, and I wanted to be close to the clubs. That's the honest answer.
When you were 16, your dad became a professor at Lancaster University.
Yeah?
Do you think it broke his heart that you didn't decide to attend the college that he worked so hard to get a job at?
I think my father's heart had been broken long before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was already too late for him, really.
When I spoke to him earlier this week,
Yeah.
his exact words were, "He went to the wrong school and studied a crackpot science, if psychology could be called that,
You've really got the voice. That's uncanny.
instead of a proper science like sociology."
Well, he's told me the same thing several times, you know. I mean, what can I say? He's a sociologist to the core. Yeah. One of the things that makes me working class, having a sociologist as a father, the the most working class of the professions, obviously.
You tried to write fiction about 6 or 7 years previous to finishing your
I've been
first
trying
book.
for years, yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
It was more or less the same series as the first Law trilogy with some of the same characters, but in your own words, it came out rather pompous, generic, and self-regarding, and you quickly lost interest.
I can see where you're going with this.
Since your work is still pretty pompous, generic, and self-regarding,
Boom!
is it mainly the money that's held your interest these days, or did you just lower your standards?
I mean, why not both? You know, I think I've lowered my standards considerably over time, and bizarrely, my earnings have risen to match. So I think I'm going to continue to lower my standards going forward.
The first law dictates that it's forbidden to touch the other side. How do you think Adele should be punished for saying hello from the other side?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the first law doesn't really specify what the punishment would be. I suppose death is usually a good fantasy punishment for things. So maybe it should be that. But, you know, it's not really up to me to police these rules. It's kind of up to the Order of Magi. So I'll leave it in their hands.
But to be clear, your suggestion is to put Adele to the guillotine.
I wouldn't presume to make the suggestion.
I see.
You know, I'm putting it out there. I'm
Sure.
just asking the question.
Sure.
You know, guillotine, bury it alive,
maybe.
I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
Sure.
Yeah. Where's the harm in that?
There's no harm. How could you harm by asking a question?
I don't
How could
know.
you harm
I
with
can't say.
words?
Absolutely. When have words ever hurt anyone?
When will Logan and the cooking pot reunite?
Well, I don't think they ever can. You know? It's like Casablanca. Humphrey Bogart has to, you know, let his lifelong love go at the end. And you kind of undermine that moment if they then meet up later and get together and get married and have 16 kids. So I think in the end, Logan had to let go of the pot, the most emotional and kind of powerful moment in my books. And to go back on that would feel like a betrayal of myself, of my characters, of my readers. And I will only do that for the right amount of money.
Who are the two characters from your books that you'd least like to see have sex?
That's a good question. I mean, there are many, aren't there? There are many characters you wouldn't particularly want to see have sex. I mean, I doubt Glocta's a man you'd want to see have sex. It's gonna be an ugly sight, I would
Right.
have thought.
So Glocta, and who's he with?
Who's he with? It's a good question. Who would he least like to have sex with? Possibly Fecal. I imagine that would not be a good pairing.
All right, everybody. Now's your chance. If you want to get back at Joe Abercrombie for killing off your favorite characters, tweet him erotic fan fiction about these two. Enjoy it, champ.
Wouldn't be the first time.
It won't be the last now. You do a lot of yapping online about how much you hate maps, magic, and world building in general.
I mean, I'm just a hater. I just hate things.
Is it because world building is difficult and requires careful research and intelligence to pull off, and intelligence is just a department in which you are severely deficient?
It is partly that. I mean, it is. It's something that requires effort. And in the end, when you write a book, all you have is your time and your energy to put into it. And so really you've got to focus on those things that interest you and excite you. And in the end, world building just feels like not the most important part of a fantasy book. I think there's a kind of nerdy instinct some fantasy readers have, where they want the book to become a sort of list of events and things, a role-playing games module. And that's fine if that's your taste, but there are role-playing games modules out there. I write novels containing characters doing and saying things. And I think that's a lot more important than the world-building element in the end.
When you started writing Savine,
Yeah,
you tried writing her with the same sort of inner dialogue that you wrote Glocta with.
that's true.
But
It is true.
It didn't quite work, right?
Let's say that it worked even less than what actually ended up in the book.
I'm glad that you didn't try to force it.
Yeah.
I think that would have actually made her character much worse.
Yep.
I think you can probably agree with the statement that if you have to force it, it's probably shit.
Probably. Yes. Absolutely.
In an interview with Brandon Sanderson and Daniel Green,
Yeah.
you said,
I'm going to want to take cheese graters to my eyeballs instead of writing.
so I guess now we know why your books are so shitty.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that would explain it.
As a serial father disappointer, educated in psychology,
Yes.
do you think the shittiness of your books have anything to do with why your characters shit themselves all the time?
You know, I've always thought it was disappointing the lack of people shitting themselves in fantasy. I read a great quantity of David Eddings' oeuvre, a lot of Tolkien, Ursula Le Guin as a kid. I can't remember one occasion on which people shit themselves, or even went for a piss. And I felt that those are significant and important parts of people's experience of life.
Sure.
And I wanted to portray my characters in the round. And to me, the shit and the piss are as valuable a part of the human experience as being crowned King of Gondor or destroying a magic ring.
Speaking of books, I actually brought my favorite Abercrombie book to get signed, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this. This should be great. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You wouldn't mind?
Not at all.
Wonderful.
Not at all. I'll sign it as Brian Longhurst, shall I?
Oh, that's not ideal, but okay. Sure.
Very nice indeed. Oh, look at this. The performative society in which human transactions are complexly structured through the growing use of performative modes and frames. Trips off the tongue, doesn't it?
Kind of see where you got all the pompousness from.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You have a tenuous relationship with Goodreads.
I do?
You roast people who give you 1-star reviews, and the people giving you 1-star reviews roast you.
It's true. It's a two-way street.
It's a bit of a toxic relationship.
Yeah, you could say that. You could.
When I was reading through your reviews, 2 of them stood out to me in particular.
Okay.
One reviewer disliked your book and gave it 2 stars.
Oh, 2 stars. That's pretty good, actually. I don't mind that.
Then they came back 6 months later and lowered it to 1 star.
No, I should have seen that coming.
There's nothing particularly significant about this negative review except for the dates.
Okay.
Do you think the blade itself was so terrible that they were reminded of it on the anniversary of the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center?
It could be. I mean, it's hard for me to say with any accuracy, you know, how these people think, if indeed they think at all.
Right, because if they don't enjoy your books, then...
It's usually a pretty good indicator. I'm not saying every time,
Right.
but my experience has tended to be if someone dislikes my book, they are a fool.
One reviewer gave your book 3 stars initially.
Nice. Yeah, that's acceptable.
However, after her boyfriend of almost 6 years cheated on her, she lowered her rating to 1 star out of spite because he was a big fan of your work and recommended the books.
You know what? That seems fair. I'm totally prepared to accept that.
And I think so too, Joe.
You know, I quite like this woman's approach to reviewing.
Do you have anything to say out there to your superfans who are considering cheating on their significant others who have read your books? Because it seems to me that if too many readers start cheating, you could see many more...
Could lower the average, you think?
Yes.
That is concerning.
Yes.
That is concerning. But, you know, I feel like I've got to stay out of the bedroom, really.
Sure.
When it comes to my readers, unless they want to obviously have a book on a nightstand or something. That's as far as I'd go, as far as involving myself in their bedroom antics.
Joe Abercrombie condones cheating.
If you must, you know. I think if that woman needed to lower the star rating to indulge feelings of spite and jealousy and upset, then that gives me kind of a warm feeling inside. You know, that's something that I can understand and get behind.
Is Joe Abercrombie still your favorite author?
That's a difficult question, isn't it? I mean, you read a lot of books, you meet a lot of people, so it's a very high bar. But I do feel that I have cleared that bar, and I remain, I mean, certainly among my top 1.
Actually, there is a pitch that I wanted to give you.
Yeah.
To the captive audience. You've heard of Where's Waldo?
Yes, I believe so.
Get ready for r/fantasy's favorite I Spy of a man with a cane. Glimpse Glockta.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, it's powerful stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's some fighting going on, and somewhere within this fighting is Glockta. I can't see him right now.
You're not very perceptive, so we're not going to take
Perhaps
the time
just
to...
above his head. I'm not very perceptive, no.
Are you serious? He is just above his head.
Just in that last minute, I caught the teeth. You know, it was more accident than anything. You did a lovely job. You did a really good job with it. Don't feel bad.
So hide him better.
I mean, you know. Look, I don't want to be
it.
the critic. I know how it feels.
You hate it, dude.
I know how it feels to be criticised.
You hate it.
And I don't want to be the guy to kind of crush your dreams and make you feel bad. I don't want that on my conscience. So, look.
It's fine, Joe.
There's a great foundation to build on. There's a lot to work on. But no one gets everything the first time, you know. You need to develop your skills.
No one except for you.
What can I say, you know? I'm a special, special boy.
In June 2015, you won an award in Stuttgart, Germany.
God, did I? An award?
An award.
It's rare.
I'm a big believer that if you can't pronounce the name of the award, then you don't deserve to have the award.
Uh-huh.
So I was just wondering if you could pronounce the name of the award.
You refer to Die Schwäbische Lindwurm.
That wasn't bad.
It wasn't too bad. I remember it well because the award was a considerable cast iron dragon. And I put it in my luggage and got on the plane to come home and was pulled off the plane by security who detected a large circular iron item in my bag. And so I had to be taken to a security room where they went through my bags and discovered this large dragon in there. It was quite intense, the whole experience.
Well, now that you described it, and it sounds so cool, I'm really disappointed because I was going to get you to mail it to me.
Mailing it would be extremely costly because, as I say, it weighs about 10 kilos.
I thought you had money.
Yeah, but I'm not spending my money to mail you my award.
Well, now you're not because you could pronounce it, but...
Oh, I was going to, if I'd failed to pronounce it, but I did pronounce it. Can you pronounce it?
Schwäbische Lindwurm.
That's actually pretty good, actually.
Yeah. Better? Were we good enough to be sent the award?
Do you know what it means?
It was something crazy. It was like a dinosaur.
Yeah, it's like the Swabian dragon or some such thing. I don't know.
Sounds like a cool award.
Yeah. I haven't got many awards. You know, people don't understand me. They have vendettas. There are all kinds of conspiracies to bring me down. I think that's the only explanation really for why I don't win everything all the time.
You used to be a freelance video editor, right? Because if you need some extra cash, I'll pay you to edit this interview.
No.
To be clear, I'll pay you in USD, which is the strongest form of currency in existence. It's worth at least 20 times what the pound is worth.
Really?